Thank everybody for coming. When I was sitting in service earlier and I looked at the packed house, first I thought everyone was just here to hear Carl's choir. And then I was, no, it's the ice cream, because I didn't think it could be this, but I'm thrilled that we have this packed house. It was what we were asking for, because we are super excited to share this with you so we can show you the work that the vestry has really been up to over the past 6 to 8 months, and how we really feel that we have a very good path to get forward and really live to the mission of this church. To dovetail off what Jim said, this isn't, even though it's kind of been billed such, and it is an annual meeting follow-up, but the annual meeting is about so much more than just the financial stability or the financial institution of the church. This is about much more, and every time I introduced myself, I said, I'm here on behalf of the vestry, because I'm a member of the vestry, and the Finance Commission, because I'm chair of the Finance Commission. And this really is a combined effort. If you think back to the past 8 months, the vestry class, of which I'm a member of, was put into place in January timeframe. And we all got together, I think it was in March, and had our retreat out at the children's home. Rick Worth, who was here last week, facilitated that retreat. And we decided that there are a lot of things that we want to work on over the next couple of years, a lot of things that are very important. But a few key things that we knew we wanted to work on that could benefit all of the members of the church and really help us fulfill our mission were formation, nurture, and outreach. We wanted to get to work right away, but before we did that, we wanted to have a conversation with you. And if you remember in May, well, before May, I think in 2 separate weeks, David Davidson, senior warden, and then Julie, the junior warden, got up to the congregation when we were still in the church and said, we just had this exciting retreat. We've got a lot of great things brewing. Stay tuned. And then in May, we got together as a church and we had the Trinity conversations. Because before we went off and did work, we wanted to be sure that that work was what the church wanted. And we heard, it was a lot of head nodding, because we heard a lot of the things that we had talked about in that vestry retreat. That finished in May, June, July. Here we are in August. It took a couple of months for the commissions to get together and say, okay, we've got our vision, we've got our long-term plan. What is it specifically that we want to deliver between now and 2017? And then the Finance Commission got together and said, how is it feasible? How can we get there? So that's what this is really all about. What those visions are, what the vestry's long-term plan is, and then what the financial path forward is. And then Sunday. So we don't want to get in the way of that. So we will be concise, and yet we will be brief. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Shannon. We've got members from each of the commissions coming up and talking, and then I'll come back and talk the finance side here in a little bit. So Shannon Gemeinhardt is going to talk to us about formation.
Thank you, Josh. All right, so what does education formation, our Christian formation, do today? We have a lot of offerings for ages 0 to adult, and some of those, well, all of them are led by volunteers. As you know, 3 years ago, we lost our education director because our priest retired and she was his wife, so they both left. So we lost our education director. So we've been under volunteer leadership since then. Thank you, Judy Clements, and all of her volunteers that helped keep this going. We also had volunteer youth ministers in the form of parents for a long time, and then Justin graduated from seminary and came back here to use all of his experience and knowledge, to bring us the youth ministry program that we have today. But again, that's volunteers, so thank you. 4 of us went to Cayuga early in the summer, and during that exciting week, busy week, we learned a lot. We came back with some ideas. We also have started to form a commission so that we can spread the workload instead of putting it all on one person's shoulders, sort of spread that workload around the commission. So we've got leaders in each subsection of the formation, which would be godly play, children's worship, adult formation, Sunday school, vacation Bible school, youth ministry. So we do godly play, that's for ages 3 to kindergarten. That happens during church, where our children go in there and begin to learn how to worship God. And it's a beautiful service. If you've never witnessed godly play, maybe we could do that and have sort of an intergenerational godly play so that you can see what those children are learning. We also have children's church, which again happens during big church. They go upstairs and sing songs and again learn how to worship, but it's age appropriate, so they're not in here bored and driving their parents crazy. Sunday school is for all ages after the 10 o'clock service. Currently, we have the TED series that's going on. Peter leads that with some other outside influence there. But we would like to expand on that at some point. I'll talk about that in a minute. We also added the New Wine and Old Skins and Theology on Tap to bring in that adult formation outside of church hours. So those meet during the week in the evenings, places outside of the church. And I can't speak for New Wines because I haven't been to that one, but Theology on Tap has really been an interesting experience because we bring people into the community of Trinity who don't even walk through our red doors. So they learn with us, they commune with us, we fellowship with each other, and they're sort of in the Trinity circle, but they're one of those sort of outside groups. So that's been really interesting to watch. And it might be that they eventually come through our doors, but right now they're really enjoying fellowshipping with us at a bar. We also do Vacation Bible School, and this program was resurrected about 5 years ago. And again, this is all volunteer-led. This year we had over 30 children and 30 volunteers, so this is a huge effort put on by so many people of Trinity, and we're so grateful to all of you who volunteer. We couldn't do it without you, so I'm going to give you a round of applause. So we got together and decided, well, what if we just dream big? What if money were no object, right? We could do whatever we wanted to do that would benefit all at Trinity. What would that look like? We would hire some paid staff, people who are professionally trained to do formation, adult formation programs, youth programs. We'd also hire a youth minister to help encourage and grow that program. We could offer increased opportunities at Cathedral Domain with more scholarship opportunities. We could enhance our youth ministries program, bigger Vacation Bible School, maybe make it a more community effort so that we invite churches from all over. We have other Episcopal churches in our area that we can include and work with and have a huge Vacation Bible School. We could send more of our parishioners to Canoga to train and bring in more leadership to the church. And we could offer more adult formation programs. We've heard you. We know you want more adult formation programs, and we're working on that. So we hope to bring in the very near future. In fact, in this Chimes coming up, there's going to be information about another offering during TED Time for adult formation programs. But we want to hear from you, and we want to know what you're looking for so that we can offer that. But we can't do it all on volunteers. We need staff to help us who are in the church, 30 hours a week, working this out, helping to corral volunteers and keep up with the communications that's required. What else would we do? We'd buy this bus. This one, right here. What could we do with a bus? Think about it. We could, take children to Domain and not have to send 8-car caravans all the way down there. I remember going to to camp, and we rode in a bus, and that was part of it. Getting to ride the bus was the beginning of that adventure. And so I think a bus would be awesome for our youth. We could go on local mission trips with that. The adults could use it as well, doing adult outreach. We could go together. We could share it with the other Episcopal churches in our area. So this is a big dream that I think would really enhance our programming. It would enhance our efforts in the community as well. So what seeds are being planted? Intergenerational formation leads to a stronger roots and a healthier parish. It is so important that we all work together, not just youth programs and then adult programs, but intergenerational workings together. That's where our children learn. VBS was so awesome this year because it was very much intergenerational. We had children of all ages mixed together. We didn't just have the little guys together and then the 5th graders together. We mixed them up so that they could mentor each other. We had the youth, the senior high and the junior high, actually working as co-counselors. They were cast members, and then we had adult volunteers also working as cast members and really integrating with the little ones, and they loved it. They get so much out of it. So that is the important part of formation, and what we really hope to see is that on a larger scale. So there you have it.
Can I just say one thing about Godly Play?
Yes.
Here's a plug for next week's TED. Shannon said that was talking about Godly Play and what that means. Judy Clements will be reintroducing Godly Play next week at this Trinity Enlightening Discussion so that you all can once again get reacquainted with what those children are doing that's developmentally appropriate for them. It's a wonderful program, and it speaks to, I think, even to us adults. So Judy will be doing that next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. We can't TiVo it, so you gotta be here live.
Okay, good morning. My name is Jim Swearingen, and I'm the liaison to the Nurture Commission. Our chair is Paula Wolf. She's out of town, so we're speaking on her behalf a little bit. The Nurture Commission is, again, a volunteer organization, and everyone, this is just a plug, anyone here that would like to help with the Nurture Commission, we meet every month. We do it at La Rosa's at 5:30 on the second Monday. Please join us. We'd love to have some new people, like people that are just new to the church, to come and bring new energy in. So a plug for joining us. But we are, our primary goal is to meet, greet, and integrate new people into the church, and to look at nurturing the church in general through some of the activities that we have. So we'll kind of run through what we do. We regularly meet all the newcomers. They get a mug, and we have a blue card that they can fill out. We try to get back to them with correspondence so that they know that we've met them, and then try and get them integrated into the system and know what's going on. The name tag ministry, everybody's supposed to be wearing their name tags. Once we get back in the church, we'd love to see that. That's part of the hospitality. When there are new people coming in, if you have a name tag, they'll know who you are, that you're a member here, and they can ask you questions. We're reintegrating a newcomers brunch. There was one earlier this year. There'll be one in September, and another one I think in December. These are to let new people kind of meet some people and ask questions outside of the service and outside of the coffee hour after church. The parish picnic we put on. This year we had a really good time, great weather. And then punch in the garden, which or punch in the hallway, they say, every Sunday. And then the Red Door Rally, which comes up on September 8th. And this is our big event where all the groups that are here, the commissions and all the other activities here, have an opportunity to get to know what's going on and sign up volunteers, because this is a great place for people. Everybody's volunteering for something. So we were asked again, what would we do if we could really dream big and we didn't have to worry too much about budgets? We'd probably look at expanding our newcomer information packets, giving people more information about Trinity, letting them know what's going on, and trying to help integrate them. Build the name tag cabinets that Andy Piascopi so beautifully built or designed, so that we don't have to have that ugly table in the church with those name tags, and the people from the Nurture Commission wouldn't have to put them in order every Saturday. There's been an interest in doing a casserole ministry. I know that St. Anne's group does it. We've had some people that have been shut in and needed support, but with the one freezer we have, we couldn't really support that and really do a casserole ministry. So the idea would be to expand that, put another freezer downstairs, and then get that rolling. And parish cameras. We're always depending on Chris or Paul or myself or someone else with a camera to photograph events like this one and others, so that we can get them into the chimes and onto the website. We'd like to have a camera that's here all the time, that we could always kind of take a snapshot of what's going on so people can see us as well as read about us. So, and then the last is probably one of the more important ones is eventually to have a volunteer coordinator here, possibly a part-time staff person that would take volunteer calls and let people know what they can do, because there's lots of people that have time. They need to be able to use it, but they don't know where they're going, where they go to get that information. So that would be our goal, to put that person in place. So the Nurture Commission, Tuesdays or Mondays, second Monday, join us. It's a great group of volunteers. They're always doing something. And the Red Door Rally on September 8th. Join us.
When Josh asked what would outreach do with a larger WISH budget, it always has been clear from our Trinity family that they want us to make a difference here in Covington. The newspaper has been full of reports of an out-of-control drug problem, the increase of child neglect and abuse. We see with our own eyes the needy and the homeless here near Trinity. With a larger budget, we would be able to give more to the homeless shelters, St. Paul's, CASA for children, the 1010 program, which works for drug and addicted adults, and other such charities. These and other charities in which Trinity donates can be seen above, and the need has never been greater. The outreach budget consists of 60% to local charities, 20% to the diocese needs, such as the scholarships to the domain, and 20% to national and international needs. At this time, our hearts and minds feel drawn to Northern Kentucky Children's Home, and we would like to be able to increase our charitable giving and give Trinity members involved in some projects at their Burlington campus. We've had meetings with Rick Worth, and this is what they came back to us to do a project like clearing brush at the lake. And another thing we've done is we've remodeled the recreation room. In the past, we've been involved in sending volunteers to Haiti, and we have donated money to build a house in Haiti. In the future, the outreach committee has been discussing with Jan Cottrell visiting Costa Rica. It seems to be the new plan of the new bishop. The outreach committee is currently in a transition period, and we are looking for new members. Don't want to steal the thunder from you, Jim. If you'd like to be part of God's hand at work, please feel free to contact me or someone else in the committee. And our next meeting will be September 18th. You'll see it in the chimes. The gracious giving of you makes us able to touch many lives in the world. We could not do it without you. So we believe it's all about being in the presence of Christ and proclaiming the good news of the gospel. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. Here's what I hope you took away from that. That we've been doing a lot of great work over the past 8 months. We've already put in a lot of programs in place. And we have dreams and a vision to do a whole lot more. But we're asking for 3 things: time, talent, and treasure. You heard everybody talk about investing more time, investing more talent. Please, if you'd like, get more involved. We're looking for that involvement. Whether it's just an idea or whether it's actually time during the week that you can donate, that's what we're asking for. But clearly we also need to be able to do this financially as well, because each one of these things, each one of these ideas that are a little bit out of the box, if you will, would require that kind of investment. So, could we get there? That's really the question. Now, before I talk about the path forward, I want to ground us in where we are right now. And I can't talk about where we are right now without talking about the transition that we've gone through over the past couple of years, right? Because clearly we've gone through a transition. And when I have this conversation with people within the congregation, usually what I hear is the most obvious one, right? The transition between Joe and Peter. Now what you see here is a picture that I got from Joe, which I believe is like his first day on the job. But I used it to make a very important point. He was here for 20 years. 20 years, right? That's a crazy transition, no matter what you're talking about. I mean, he was Trinity for so long, and regardless, it's going to have a huge impact on the congregation when we lose somebody who gave everything that he gave for 20 years, right? Then Michael was the last associate, so I have Michael here. Then there was a transition, right, from an associate rector to not having an associate rector to having an associate rector. But one thing a lot of people don't know about, and I didn't know about this until I got a little bit more involved, which is why I have half Michael crossed out, is that the diocese actually picked up for a while half of the associate rector's package, right? So this wasn't only a personnel transition, if you will, but it's a financial transition, because we said we want an associate. And that means a lot both personally and also financially in order to be able to do that. That's a transition. Shannon already mentioned that we went from basically a full-time to a part-time of a volunteer. That's a transition as well. And although we've finally gotten the volunteers up and running where we can spread the load, it's still volunteer-based. And formation is so important, not only for us adults, but also for our children. We need to be able to make that investment to make sure that it's done right, done correctly. We're talking about investments in our education, in ourselves, investments in fellowship, and investments in the community. And we need to figure out the right way to get there, and that's what this is all about. this is important as well. Now, I don't know, I have to admit, I don't know either of these people as well as maybe I should, but the transition from Judy, who was our administrator for so long, to Amy, right? They're the cogs of the organization, right? And when you have that kind of transition, and you don't always have the chimes going out because you don't know, you don't always have the birthdays because you don't know, it just takes some time. We've turned over our entire staff in 3 years. And that's a big transition that we all have to recognize that we've gone through, right? Now, we've been sitting here for 25 minutes, so it's okay. We're going to have a little exercise. I would like everybody to stand up because this is a big transition as well. The church has changed. The church continues to change. Bear with me for a second. If you've been an adult member of this church for longer than 25 years, please sit down. Okay? You've got a lot of people here that about only knew Joe. Okay? And then you've got a lot of people who've been here for longer, but about only knew Joe. If you've been here for longer than 10 years, please sit down. Now you're talking 50-50, right? A lot of the people, about 40%, 30% of the people kind of knew both sides of the face of the church, if you will, over the last couple of years. Let's go 3 years. If you've been here for longer than 3 years. Or, I'm sorry, if you've been here for shorter than 3 years. 1 year. We're still growing. Thank you all very much. You've got people who are standing up that only ever knew Peter. And I know that there are other people who have been here for long periods of time, or for a short period of time, that aren't here now. We're continually growing, we're continually transforming, and there are a lot of people who have gone through this transition over the time and don't have the same old tapes that a lot of other people do or have different perspectives. We're always growing. At the same time that we're always growing, we as a nation and we as a congregation have new needs based on our age, right? As the baby boomers in the nation get older, we're all learning what that means. And we have new needs for pastoral care, we have new needs for adult formation, and we as a congregation, as lay leaders, and also as the rectors need to understand how to get through this transition. This is a broader transition. It's bigger than just Trinity, but we need to figure out how to get through this transition. And oh, by the way, the economy collapsed in the past 3 or 4 years, right? One of the biggest economic quasi-meltdowns since whenever. So that's huge as well. Now that doesn't affect Trinity alone, but it does affect us here in the church. So with all of that, the question is, how are we doing? How have we done through this transition? Now, there are 34 churches in the diocese, okay? 15 of them are really too small to compare against. Their total income is less than 10% of ours, so it's not very fair to do a comparison between us and them. Of the 19 that are remaining, 14 have at least transitioned a rector. I don't know if they've also transitioned an associate rector, and they've transitioned an admin, and also the formation director, but they've at least transitioned a rector. And from that point, when the rector transitioned until the most recent point in history, here's what you have in terms of total income, total plate on a yearly basis. Not total income, total donation, total plate on a yearly basis. So they started off here the year before the rector transition, and then they've gotten to here. And anybody above the line is now getting in more funds than before the rector changed, right before the rector changed. Anyone below the line is still struggling to get out of that transition period. Guess where Trinity is? Right in the middle. Right in the middle. Some are better, some are worse. What I've seen when I look at this data a different way is some come right out of it, some really nosedive, and some just kind of take a long path to get out and then they come out. That's where we are. My point being here is that this is totally normal. And it's what a lot of other churches go through, right? Now, we talked about, and I'll get to this again in a minute, we talked about in February, through the generosity of the church, through the generosity of you, that the stewardship drive that we experienced last year really helped to drive us out of that. And you see, if you analyze this, or if you actually look at the data, that happens a lot. After a couple years of kind of declining, then you start to come out of it at a steeper pitch. And that's where we are right now within our budget. I'll get back to that in a minute. But what were we able to do with this budget? Because I now want to call it all the way back to what the first 3 presenters talked about. These are 3 things that we felt were very, very important for the life of this church, right? Education, fellowship, and outreach. Here's what we're able to afford with our budget. And this has been true for a couple years now. This isn't just the last year. There's been wobble. But a couple years, this is basically what the budget had looked like. You can see a huge amount in terms of staff, a big amount in terms of utilities and facilities, and then there's a little bit all other. We give money to the diocese, and look what we're left with for outreach, formation, and nurture, right? Now, I love the work that Peter and Linda and John and everybody else on staff does, and this building is wonderful. It gives us everything that we want and need. But those are the things that can enrich us on a regular basis, and that's the investment that we're making in it right now. So just consider that as you consider what we talked about for the first 15 minutes of the discussion. Now, again, I talked about because of the generosity through the envelope, we were able to start to come out of the transition. Average pledges were up 17% in the time period versus a year ago. So that was a huge amount of generosity from the congregation. But that's not the only way we got there. And we talked about this in February as well. We also had to use a couple of other means in order to balance the budget. First and foremost, we have said the Book of Remembrance can donate or give, if you will, to the regular operating expenses, $160,000 a year. But we prefer it to be more like $120 to cover the rector's package. But we'll give another $40. That's okay because rate of return, we're still making money on top of that. So that's what that first circle is over to the left. Then, for lack of a better term, we basically cashed out a couple of savings accounts. The biggest one being the staffing fund that we generated while Michael was gone during the time period we didn't have an associate rector. Through that, we were able to deliver a balanced budget in 2013, which we talked about back in February, to get to the total available income that we have right now. Now, one thing that I do want to mention was in my Chimes article is that right now, as we do an outlook on this year, we're running at about a 10% risk. As income has come in, we do this monthly, then 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, fiscal year to date versus year ago. How are we pacing versus how we've historically paced? And right now, we're pacing about 10% behind of the plate, not the total income of the plate. But I will say a couple things. One, for the past 2 months, especially after we sent the letter out that said, hey, reminder, income for those 2 month period are actually higher than a year ago. Kind of feel like there's some momentum potentially coming out of it. And I'll admit, we wanted to have this conversation that we're having right now a while ago. Some people might be thinking, well, what's going on? I want to know what's going on within the church. We're hopeful that we'll come out of this, that risk will go away. If not, the Financial Commission is trying to figure out what levers need to be pulled to get out of it. But this risk is there. The Finance Commission is dealing with it. We're just hopeful that as we get through the fall, we won't have to deal with it. Okay? But once we get out of the period and we go back to the question before, what if we dream big? What does that look like? This is what it looks like. This is what everything that they talked about. Now, this is what Shannon's formation speech looked like, having a couple people on staff, the one-time and regular expense for the bus, and increased investments in things like Canuga, etc. You can see that the outreach gets larger. Now, for those who don't know, outreach is just a function of the plate. Okay, so as the plate gets bigger, the amount of money that we can donate to the community gets larger. And the way the algebra works is we double it from $30,000 to $60,000. Huge impact that we can have on this community. And then the nurture budget grows as well, especially because of that paid part-time staff member. And then everything else just kind of fluctuates with inflation. Okay? I look at that on the right and I think, yes, this is a lot more of what I think that we should look like in terms of the events that we'll have and the programs that we'll have within the church. Now, how do we get there? That's the big question, right? So first and foremost, remember I said there are a lot of kind of one-timers that we have within this year that we are not going to have next year. We've got to get over that hump. And note, I also want to get that $40,000 out of the book that I said we can have up to 160. We'd rather have 120. This both gets us to a balanced budget based on everything we've talked about and gets us off that reliance of the book because we don't want it. We only want to have the rector's package covered and that's it. So you can pull a lot of different levers. This is one scenario. What does this scenario look like? It looks like over the next 4 years, average giving goes up 10%, 7%, 5%, 5%. And the giving units, families, if you will, go up by 30, 20, 15, and 15 giving units. If we pull those two levers over the next couple of years, if we make that choice as a church, we can have everything that was talked about earlier on. But the big question is, are these reasonable expectations? Because it might feel like a lot. Well, let me frame it this way. 17% last year. 10, 7, 5, 5. We already have a record that we can over-deliver that. Benchmark to 19 other churches that are our size, not the other 15 that are smaller than us. The best benchmark I can get is plate divided by average Sunday attendance. So try and think about this as giving per unit, but it's the only benchmark I can really get. Guess where Trinity is? Here. If we meet that budget over the next 5 years, where will Trinity be? Here. In other words, it's not like our giving per unit would have to be so far out of the context of the rest of the diocese that it wouldn't feel reasonable. It's actually right in the middle. It would feel very reasonable. Something else to consider, the way the math works, you're talking about an average of $5 a week. And the question is, based on everything that was presented earlier, is Trinity worth it? Is Trinity worth an extra $5 a week? So for the price of a cup of coffee a day, is Trinity worth it? I'm just trying to put it in a frame of reference that you might initially say, 10%, seriously? But this is what 10% looks like on average, right? Now the other one, the giving units. What that would mean, and there's one way that I like to think about this, but what that would mean is that for every 5 families, every 5 giving units would have to bring in 1. Now again, I said we're looking for time, talent, as well as treasure. So this would take us going out into the community and inviting our friends who we think would be wonderful members of this community, or reaching out to the new folks who we've never met before. The way I like to think about this, if everybody gets 1 and 1 family stays, that's a 20% retention rate. I think Trinity's better than a 20% retention rate. I don't know about you all, but I think that Trinity's definitely worth it. So what it all comes down to, again, I believe is a choice. It's a choice. Is this the church that we want? Are these the programs that we want? Is this the type of work that we want to do? And if it is, then we choose. And we say yes. So to talk a little bit more about that and a little bit more about what 2014 will bring, I'm going to hand it over to Elyse for a second, who's going to softly, if you will, introduce the stewardship campaign for next year. Because it doesn't really kick off for another month.
Okay, who's excited? Awesome. I think it's just so exciting where our church is going, and considering all the transitions we had, we increased our stewardship campaign, the pledges that we came in by 17% last year. That is phenomenal. So I can't underscore the importance enough that we are an amazing church. We bore a lot of great fruits this year. 80% of our parishioners increased their pledges last year. I mean, that is just beyond my expectations, beyond the committee's. It was just phenomenal. So we are really at an exciting point in our church's history, and we are growing, and we should celebrate that. Okay, oh, that one, yeah, okay. So the first image, we asked you to think about the seeds that you need to plant to have a strong relationship with God and how you need to grow, and also the seeds that Trinity has that helps you grow in your faith. So we planted seeds on one Sunday morning, and we watched our plants grow. Well, and we grew our plants. I mean, we grew, we took a step up for God. This year, our theme, and I want to say, you know the term, if you're not growing, you're dying. Obviously, we are growing here. But we have the power to decide if we want to take that next step up and ask ourselves, what kind of trees do we want to plant? And as Josh said in the chimes last month, which I thought was very poetic, you know, he wants to plant an oak tree, and I think all of us do here. That's our oak tree. So we're taking that theme that we talked about last year and expanding it to find out what kinds of trees we want to grow. So this is like he said, a soft kickoff to our campaign, and we will be asking you, you know, what kind of tree do you want to plant, both for your personal growth? What do you need to personally grow, and what does Trinity need to personally to grow our church and to grow the life here at Trinity? So as you can see, this is just a small sample of all the great things that happen here. We are bearing great fruit. We have so much momentum and so much spirit here. You know, the Holy Spirit is really alive, and I'm excited to see how we can sustain and grow our oak tree. And next, I forgot the next slide. Okay, most important slide. If you pledged, if you filled out a giving card, please fulfill that. We ask you to continue your commitment to Trinity. If you're new, and sorry if we have not invited you to pledge, it's still not too late to give this year for the remainder of the calendar year. And then as we go into our stewardship campaign, we just prayerfully ask all of you to consider how you'd like to step up for God in 2014.
So here's how we would like to close today, with this prayer. Now, I'll read it, hopefully along with you, although I'm not very good at this, so I'll fumble through. Disturb us, Lord, when we are too pleased with ourselves, when our dreams come true because we dream too little, when we arrive safely because we sail too close to shore. Disturb us, Lord, when in the abundance of things we possess, we have lost our thirst for the waters of life, when having fallen in love with life, we have ceased to dream of eternity. And in our efforts to build a new earth, we have allowed our vision of the new heaven to dim. Stir us, Lord, to dare more boldly, to venture on wider seas, where the storms will show your mastery, where losing sight of land, we shall find the stars. We ask you to push back the horizons of our hopes, and to push us into the future with strength, courage, hope, and love. Amen. That pretty much sums it up for us. We hope that you're as excited about this as we are. We hope that you're as excited about this vision and this 5-year vision that the vestry is, that the commissions are. Please, during Sunday, which I think it's about that time, because I know that they let off upstairs here in a minute, feel free to come up to any of us to ask questions if you'd like more detail. And as Elyse said, if you're new and you want to pledge still within 2013, please come find her. And if prayerfully consider your 2014, and we'll kick off stewardship in about a month. Thank you all for your time, much appreciated. And again, come find us if you have questions. Thank you.